Barcelona's midfielders are usually known for their very technical style of play, for their composure, press resistance and vision. Players like Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, Fabregas, Thiago, Pedri, Frenkie de Jong and Gavi are all examples of what a Barcelona midfielder looks like. But Barcelona haven't always had Barcelona midfielders at all times. In 2017 there even was someone that came in that was considered all but a Barcelona midfielder, being more of a physical box-to-box midfielder, Paulinho. This seemed like a horrible transfer, and fans were afraid that the 29-year-old Brazilian would take away valuable minutes from youngsters. But after that season, fans loved Paulinho, and nobody considered him as a bad acquisition anymore. How did that happen? How did Paulinho play himself into the hearts of Barcelona fans? Well, that's what we'll discover in this video, so make sure to stay tuned. Before joining Barcelona, Paulinho had spent spells of his career in Brazil, a couple of years at Tottenham and his most recent years in China playing for Guangzhou Evergrande. Barcelona in 2017 were looking for a new midfielder and really came up with Paulinho, who was playing in China, and paid 40 million euros for him. That seems kind of crazy. And of course this guy had been a regular player for the Brazil national team for a long time already too, but 40 million for a player out of China who was 29 years of age when he still had experienced players like Rakitic and Iniesta and clearly needed young players for the future. That just seemed like a typical Bartomeu decision. Barcelona's future midfield would have to wait. Now they had an extra asset in midfield in Paulinho, who was physical, could recover the ball well and could make runs inside of the box to score goals. Not a bad player, but you can see why Barcelona fans were skeptical of this transfer at the time. So, how did that season go for him? Well, he was a rotational player. In big games he was often on the bench, but in La Liga games he often started as well. He didn't take too much game time away from anyone. He really just added a good level of depth to Valverde's Barcelona team. And some fans were afraid he wouldn't fit into Barcelona's system, but actually he fitted in very well. As a midfielder who could make runs forward into the box and was more aggressive, he perfectly complemented players like Iniesta or Rakitic who were better technically and had much better vision and passing. And with an old Iniesta, it was good to have someone to replace Iniesta with when he could not play. It might all not be the most Barcelona thing, but Paulinho did fit into that midfield very well. And making runs forward often paid off. He perfectly understood what Valverde told him to do and where and when to do it. And his chemistry with the rest of the players was actually great. He had no problem linking up with Jordi Alba and Lionel Messi and was just a part of the machine of Valverde's Barcelona. It wasn't the most spectacular team and it's never been considered as one of Barcelona's great teams like the one in 2015 or 2009. But this team did almost go unbeaten in La Liga for a whole season and was very hard to beat, and Valverde's style of playing was the reason for that. Very composed, organized and possession-based, with Paulinho as a typical player who fitted into that type of system. It's indeed not the most Barcelona thing, but there was hardly any player out there who could have filled in Paulinho's role better than he did himself. He was a rotational player who could provide Barcelona with some aggression in the midfield, with unpredictability when he made runs forwards, his chemistry with the other players was very good, and at numerous moments that paid off. Away against Getafe and away against Athletic Club in La Liga that season, he was crucial with clutch goals. Of course, these aren't the biggest of games, but he wasn't the biggest of players either. He didn't come to Barcelona to be a star, to compete for a spot with Iniesta or Rakitic. He just came to do his best and give Barcelona everything he could. If Valverde had played him in the biggest of games every time, then I'm sure fans wouldn't have liked him. But he was clearly nothing more than a rotational player. And when he did play, he added value. He knew he was there and he gave it his all. He was a very committed player and that's something that Barca fans need to see from their players. If a player is not committed, he won't earn any respect. Think about Sergio Roberto or Clément Lenglet in the big Champions League games under Quique Setien and Ronald Koeman. They seem to lack commitment and conviction. They seem to feel powerless against their opponents and that is just not Barcelona. Paulinho, however, did always play with that commitment, and that earned him the respect of Barca fans. And just so that you know, he didn't play any minutes in that game away against Roma, so he wasn't to blame for that humiliation. Eventually, he ended up with 9 goals and 2 assists in La Liga that season. That's really good for a midfielder in his first season who's not even a regular starter. And fun fact, it's more than Karim Benzema had in that same season, with 5 goals in 32 La Liga games. This was definitely not too bad of a signing, and now you understand why Barca fans loved him. After that season, he went back to Guangzhou Evergrande for 42 million euros. So eventually, Barcelona didn't lose any money by bringing him in the first place. He had really just provided Barcelona with everything he had for one full season. It's logical fans were skeptical about him in the first place, a 29-year-old midfielder coming in from the Chinese league, when there were players like Carles Alenya and Riqui Puig coming from La Masia waiting for a chance to break through in the first team. But Barcelona didn't really lose anything with Paulinho. They had more depth in midfield now, they had a different kind of midfielder, Paulinho fitted in well into the team, he didn't play more than he should have, and eventually they didn't lose any money by bringing him in. So it's really hard as a Barca fan to not love Paulinho after considering all of those things. That's why up to this day he's still respected by lots of Barca fans. That was it for today's video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and feel free to share your own opinion in the comments down below. Força Barça, Força Paulinho, and have a good day.